1933. The winter dampness crept through the kitchen door, chilling Gran through her worn flour sack shift. The little girl standing in the doorway had not moved since she first appeared, her gaze fixed on the cot across the room where her mother lay. The room, the kitchen of an old plantation, was immense, and the fire from a claw-footed stove in a far corner cast flickering shadows against walls stained and slick with a century's worth of wood smoke and bacon grease. Dividing the room was a roughly hewn pine table longer than a ship's gangplank, big enough to seat a dozen people and heaped with baskets and gourds, clay pots, syrup buckets. One wall was taken up by a massive fireplace boarded over. Through the open door, the old woman heard the Buick spin its tires furiously in the mud, finally gain traction, and power off in the direction from which it had come. Memphis, the man had said, his load lighter now by one dead woman and her child. Good news never comes in bad weather, she had predicted when the white man had driven up less than half an hour ago in his fancy car. She had been right about that. Again, Gran noticed the dark stains on the girl's baby blue dress. Violet, they said her name was, just before they had abandoned the girl to her care, with nothing but the clothes on the child's back. She couldn't be more than 7, her skin the same honey brown as her mother's, the same color-shifting eyes. The old woman released a heavy breath. "You don't need to be seeing this." She walked over to a shelf to retrieve a ragged patchwork quilt. Nobody got no respect for the healing no more. She tried explaining as she covered the body. Can't take things into your own hands. You got to pay respect. Violet showed no sign of hearing Gran's complaint, but the old woman continued regardless. "Why?" she demanded angrily. "Why did she do that? I explained it to her careful. Teaspoon in the morning for 9 days. It ain't my fault. And only early on, never this late. Never after the quickening. I told her that too. I told her it would kill her and the child both. They had no right to bring her to me like this." The old woman shook her head sadly at Violet. "It ain't my fault, little girl. She went against the healing." The girl was motionless, except for the almost imperceptible ticking of her head from side to side, as if marking time to some faint melody. The old woman carefully reached behind Violet to shut the door against the cold. "Might as well get yourself over by the fire." Gran reached down for the girl, but Violet jerked her hand away and swung it protectively behind her back. "Suit yourself." She gripped the girl firmly by the shoulders and steered her to the stove. Violet didn't resist, but all the time she kept her eyes on the covered body, her head ticking ever so slightly to the secret rhythm. The old woman bent down to study the girl's face in the light of the cook stove, venturing a look into her eyes. They seemed to peer right through her. The girl's pupils were tiny pinpricks. "You ain't heard a word I said, have you?" Gran let out a tired breath. "You ain't having none of it. I can tell that much." She touched the child gently on the cheek with the back of her weathered hand. "A shadow been put across your face. You walking with the spirits now." Violet's shivering grew more violent. The old woman led the girl to the pantry, many years ago a bedroom for the plantation cook. It contained another cot and shelves which were lined with bottles and jars and sacks tied off at the neck. All were marked with what appeared to be a child's attempt at lettering. After carefully removing the girl's stained dress and then covering her with quilts, Gran selected a paper sack and went back into the kitchen. She returned shortly with a chipped cup held closely between her palms.